Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Movies with GRose. How are you? How
I'm
you doing?
good. Doing good. We're both kind of sleepy today, but we're gonna
Those are the best episodes, right?
power through. Yes.
Um, Real quick, before we jump into all of our films, I hope everyone in the chat is doing all right. We have a couple people here today. Thank you for joining us. Today is episode 3 of 4. So next week will be our grand finale. Again, I appreciate you tuning in live. If you don't have time to tune in live, this will be available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. And I will do my best to put the chapters in the description. So if you come back later, you can just skip to whatever movie you want to hear about. Feel free to like and subscribe. Um, Before we start, I would like to recap how we rate our movies, because this is a horror bracket and we want to give every movie a chance to succeed. We have three different criteria. We have entertainment value, which is out of 4. We have scares and kills, which is out of 4. We have writing and acting, which is out of 2. So that's the least important category, but it's worth something. That adds up to 10. Um, and then, like I said, next week will be our finale. We'll talk about 5 more movies, and then we'll close out the bracket, determine a winner. Um, yeah, this last week was pretty good.
I'm gonna cut in first though and
Yeah,
say
go
I
ahead.
can't believe that next week's already the finale because I feel like last October this was such a chore because we did 31 and this one
Y-
we have like what 20 something.
yeah, so last year we did 31 movies in 31 days, and there were only like 2 or 3 movies that we skipped.
Yeah, we did really good.
We actually ended up watching probably 29 movies
Yeah, for
in
sure.
October, whereas this year it's kind of a combination of new films and films that we've seen in the past like month or two
Yeah.
that we want to talk about because they're newer films, but we might not have seen them in October. Um, so a little bit more tolerable
Yeah, definitely.
this year.
Because it's
Um,
still fun right now, you know? Before it was like, oh my God, okay.
and just scheduling wise, it's a lot
It
easier.
is,
So,
definitely.
without further ado, we're going to jump into our first film of the evening, which is a newer movie. It's probably still in theaters. It's called Halloween
Oh, it's
Ends.
definitely still in theaters.
Like I said, this just came out. We saw it on opening night on that Thursday that it came out. And we were both pretty excited for it. I liked Halloween 2018. For those that don't know,
Excited is a heavy word.
sure,
We were both,
interested.
yes, interested is a
Yeah,
better
because
word.
let me rephrase. Because so this movie is the finale to the new trilogy, and in 2018, the 2018 one was pretty good actually. I would like to rewatch
Yeah,
it actually.
I think it was.
Especially in hindsight, it's pretty good. Then they made a sequel called Halloween Kills, which most people didn't like. We talked about it in last year's horror bracket, and
Hmm.
we didn't enjoy it very much.
No.
So this is the finale to that trilogy. Again, we won't spoil anything,
No, because
but
it's very new.
we will talk about the film. I guess I'll dive right into my score for entertainment,
Okay.
and this kind of ties into the writing, and I guess we'll dive into it more when we get to that section. But I thought this movie was overall pretty boring, and I
Yeah,
think that's
I would agree.
I think that's really what holds it back the most is the entertainment and the scares, because I think from a writing perspective this movie is actually kind of interesting. They try to do something new with it, but it's boring as hell. Like it's a
But the
1 out of
thing they
4.
tried to do new, I don't think was done well. So even
Right.
that means the writing was bad.
Right. No, yeah, I agree. I would give this a 1 out of 4 for
That's
entertainment.
what I also gave it.
The opening sequence is interesting, and it really does set the tone for the movie because someone dies, but it's not traditionally what you would expect from a Halloween film.
Right.
It's a really good opening sequence, and it's
Yeah.
kind of spooky, and they're trying to do something different with the themes. You can tell,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
But after that, without spoiling too much, Michael Myers doesn't appear for at least 30 or 40 minutes, and he doesn't kill anyone till probably an hour in. And
Yeah.
and we don't get another murder in the film for probably 30 or 40
But I was
minutes.
thinking that's very reminiscent of like the old like Hellraisers, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean it kind of feels like an old school
It does. It
Halloween
feels like the
film.
first because we had just also, we're also going to talk about it, but we had just watched the first Halloween movie, and it. I mean, the pacing was kind of the same. Spoiler alert, they're both fucking boring.
Yeah,
Like
no,
it's
yeah,
not.
for sure. I mean, here's the thing. It's like I think if this movie did everything it was trying to do, but it just injected more random slasher kills, I think it could have been a lot better.
Yeah.
Um, Jimmy said in the chat just now, was this a different director than the other two? So let's take a look. The director of this one was David Gordon Green. He did, no, he did all three of them, it looks
And
like.
Pineapple Express, how
Um,
weird is that?
and it's a shame because, and we'll talk about this when we get to the writing perspective a little bit, but you can really tell that the people making these films gave a crap about them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew this, but one of the main producers on this trilogy and one of the guys that kind of got it off the ground is Danny McBride. He really loved
Oh,
the
I
Halloween
know him.
films, and so
Yeah.
he funded this new trilogy pretty heavily. And you can just tell that it's a labor of love, and you can tell that they wanted to do something
I mean, I
different.
think that's it. I think you can tell that this was made by horror nerds and it was made by people who really love like what you just said, but it just wasn't it didn't live up to it.
Yeah.
Even
Um,
like normies don't like this movie. And like
yeah.
that's a problem, I
Yeah,
think.
and so, jumping over to, so what did you say for entertainment value?
I gave it a 1 out of 4 and I just thought it was sleepy and boring and like nothing super happened.
There's nothing entertaining about it, right? If we're talking
No.
about entertainment score, keeping your attention, the normie factor almost of it, it's like bottom of the barrel. I remember walking
Yeah.
out of the theater, and when we walked into the theater, it was Thursday night, which means it's the
It
first
was
night of the
opening
film,
night.
opening night, and tickets are sold out all night, and they probably had 7 different showings on a single day. And I remember walking out of the theater saying, and I turned to Natalie and I said, I feel so bad for all of the teenagers that are going to go out of their
You
way
did
to
say
see
that.
this movie on opening night, and they're going to be introduced to like a really boring movie. Like
Yeah.
nothing really happens
It
for most of the
definitely
film.
wasn't like a super fun like horror,
No.
there were no like jump scares, I feel like there were no like super jumping into scares and kills, I
It's a
guess we'll just
drama.
go there. It was a drama,
This
which
is a drama through and
sucks.
through. So jumping over to scares slash kills, a 1 out of 4.
That's what I said.
Um,
I've literally put nobody really died.
Nobody
Which is
really dies.
so
In,
weird.
in the in the back half of the movie, there's maybe two. There's 2 sequences that I can remember in the back half. Well, 3 technically, but there are 3 sequences in the back half where people are getting murdered.
Yeah.
Um,
So I literally put, to cut you off again, I'm so sorry. I put the end was okay and that's why it gets 1 point. I gave it a 1 out of 4.
there's the final death at the end. There's right before that. There's a little montage that's way too fast
Way too
where
fast.
they kill a couple people.
Yeah.
And then there's like one death before that that's like really weird and awkward. There's like a sequence. So um, 1 out of 4 for scares and kills.
Yeah.
Was that? Did you give it a one out of
Yeah.
four? Okay.
Yeah.
And then going
Wait,
over
do
to
you want to catch
writing
up
and
with the
acting.
chat
Yeah,
before we keep
let's
going?
read the chat real quick. Sam said, "I'm all right with waiting a while for scares and kills as long as there's sufficient build up and suspense. This movie's not.
It didn't
It's not
deliver that.
suspenseful.
No.
It's not." He also said, there's nothing special happening in between kills. It'll put me to sleep. Was it genuinely bad or just underwhelming? Um,
That's a great question. I think it was underwhelming
Underwhelming is a good
because
word
I
for it.
think that it was like Tyler said, it was a drama. It wasn't bad. Like, but I remember sitting in the theater and like 3/4 of the way through the movie being like, "Oh, this is a horror movie. Like, we're in a horror
It's
movie
not a
right now."
horror movie.
Because it's
It's
not. It is very drama.
And so to talk about writing and acting, one thing I want to say real quick is we've talked a lot of crap on Jamie Lee Curtis
Yeah.
in this series because in the last 2 movies she's
Wait.
been the weakest part of the film, and after this movie we realized. So in this movie, minor spoiler, Jamie Lee Curtis's character has overcome her crazy disease.
Paranoid, yeah.
Yeah, where she's like gone through a couple of years. This movie takes place like 5 years after the last
Four.
one,
4
four,
years.
whatever.
Literally, that's because so 2018 was the first 2 movies, and this
Gotcha.
is 2025.
So, and she plays a character in this movie that's like a normal person that has gotten over her grief, and she's really, really good in it. She's like
She's
a
great.
really good actor in this, and
Yeah.
it made us realize that oh, she hasn't given up on acting. It's that in the last 2 movies, the director told her act like a crazy
Right.
person,
Be
and she's
crazy.
not good at being a crazy
No, not
person.
at all. I literally put for my production whatever. I gave it a 1 out of 2 only for Jamie Lee because I love her. And like
Yeah,
that's so funny that you said
and
that.
in
Like
this, she's like actually
she's
good.
great. It's very comparable to Everything Everywhere, like her acting style. I keep messing with my
Yeah,
mic
you
and
got to
it
stop.
bugs Tyler.
Every time you move it, it's gonna make a
I'm
noise. So
sorry. I'm
just delete.
sorry.
It's good.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, no. But you can see part of my review on the screen right now. But The main issue with this movie is that they wanted to demystify Michael Myers. They wanted to stop, in every other Michael Myers movie, in every Halloween movie, he is this symbol of evil
And
and
he's
he's like this
supernatural.
supernatural being.
Yeah.
And there are elements of that in this movie,
Yeah.
but all in all, they try to make him more of a regular human
Right, because I
being.
think they wrote themselves into a like, oh fuck, like he's unstoppable, but you kind of have to be
But they didn't
eventually.
have to do that because,
Yeah.
at least in my opinion, because what this movie tries to do and what this movie is really about is this movie is mostly about a young man and a young woman having an angsty relationship,
Mhm.
and they are afflicted by people in their community looking down on them because they are the focal points of traumatic events. And
Yes.
so this movie is trying to explore how evil events affect people traumatically, and then how members of their community might look down on them for that trauma. That's what this movie is.
Okay, yeah.
90% of this movie is just an angsty relationship, and I really cannot stress enough how angsty it is.
It is very angsty, and I feel like we've gotten a lot of angsty horror. Like we were talking about this with something else. That's like the new genre, it's angsty horror, and I hate it.
But
I'm
at least
not
with like Halloween, I'm sorry, Hellraiser 2022, which is has a lot of angsty
very
elements and an
angsty.
angsty relationship,
Yeah.
but they're constantly splicing in horror sequences to
Yes.
keep you interested. And
Yes.
whereas this movie, they make Michael Myers boring. There's no kills, and you're left with a movie that's like a political. It's not political, but
It's
it's
not political, but it's
it's a moral statement. It's not a
it is.
movie.
It's like the more you know. What is that? Like a PSA. Like
Yeah.
trauma is not evil, right? It's
Yeah, like
like
treat people nicely. Like that's the
yes.
movie. And so, and then the whole movie you feel like they're setting up for a new series, like a soft reboot, and then they squash that at the end, and they're like, nope, it actually is the ending. It's just it because
It was a lot.
the whole movie I felt like they were like, oh, they're setting up a new.
See, I never got setup vibes. I was just
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, like they were just trying something new. I feel like I knew the whole time that this was the end. The end.
I thought so too, but I guess in the back of my mind I kept thinking like, wow, if they're really gonna sacrifice as much as they are, like maybe they are gonna
But they
surprise us at the end.
didn't sacrifice as much as I thought they were going to sacrifice, and that makes me mad.
Yeah. So again, we're trying to talk around spoilers here, but all in all, you're gonna see a lot of people online, movie nerds, that go, actually, this movie's really interesting because it does something different than all of the other Halloween movies did, and actually, I think it has a really interesting story, and it's very, but it's boring.
It is
It's a
boring.
boring movie. That's
It
really all.
is.
You go to these movies for slashers. At least Halloween Kills sucked. I hated that movie. I know Jimmy really enjoyed it. I thought it was a tremendously boring and poorly written movie, but at least it had murder all the time and scary, spooky, suspenseful sequences. Every
Yeah.
time they weren't in the hospital, it was kind of an interesting movie.
Yes, and it had payoff.
It had payoff.
And this one never has payoff. I'm sorry. I have to be.
Read the chat. Go ahead,
Sam and
please.
Jimmy are killing me with their little things. Like it started off with Jimmy saying more like Halloween doesn't kill. Then he went to more like Halloween sucks. Then he went to more like Halloween parks in a handicap spot. They're just really funny. Also, Jimmy, this is nothing to do with the podcast, but I have to send you a link, something malignant related, and it's hilarious. I'm gonna send it to you.
Um, so writing and acting, I'll give it a 1 out of 2 just because the reason I'm not giving it a 0 is because number one, I think that they wanted to do something interesting with this, and it could
They
have been
definitely
interesting
did.
literally if they just inserted more bullshit slasher spooky scenes, just randomly inserted murder scenes, this movie
I
would have
think
been
it would have been way
completely
better.
fine.
But I don't think that's what they wanted. I
No.
think they wanted to make a drama. They wanted to make a serious
Yes,
horror.
they wanted to make a movie
Like a
that's like,
Black Swan-esque vibe,
yeah, they
but they
wanted to
failed.
they wanted to tell a story. Like a
Yes.
like a like a moral story, but you can't do that when your main characters are just walking cliches.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
So my total score for Halloween Ends was a 3 out of 10.
My total, I think that's mine too. Sorry, I was looking for that link
For a horror
actually.
movie. Now you'll see right here on Letterboxd I gave it a 4 out of 10. That's because I think it's like a real movie in some ways. We won't get, but for the bracket, 3 out of 10.
My app crashed. 3 out of 10.
We both gave it a 3 out of 10. So, all in all, a pretty lackluster
They
movie. I was pretty
tried. They
disappointed.
tried.
I really want, because here's again, Halloween 2018, and I really would like to rewatch it soon, even though it's not in our bracket. But like,
No, I'd be done.
that movie nails Michael Myers. He is spooky
It
in
is
it.
it is the best reboot that we could have gotten, I think.
It's my personal favorite of the entire series. There's a lot of Halloween movies. Halloween 2018 is my
I
favorite.
really liked Halloween 3.
Yeah, but that doesn't have Michael Myers, so it
But
barely counts,
but
right?
it's Halloween. We're talking about Halloween.
Um, so yeah, vibe check on the chat. I don't. You know what? I know Jimmy will watch it. I know Sam won't. So
Won't watch this.
this movie.
Mm.
Next up, we have a movie that we didn't rewatch this year only because we've seen it so many times.
I know, but we should have because as I was writing my like reviews and stuff today, I was like, "Fuck, I want to watch Saw." I love Saw.
Saw is the movie we're talking about.
Sorry, spoilers.
Saw is directed by James Wan.
Love James
He,
Wan.
for those of you who don't know, he did Insidious, he did The Conjuring, he did
Malignant.
Malignant. He's kind of like he's kind of the
Dead
grandfather of
Silent.
modern horror. And the first Saw movie broke the mainstream pretty heavily. I remember being in elementary school on the bus and hearing about Saw.
Did you watch it in
No, I
elementary
didn't,
school?
but I just remember
Oh.
hearing about it. It was such a cultural phenomenon. Everyone had seen
When
Saw.
did you first watch Saw?
Probably when I was like 14.
So I didn't watch Saw until I was probably like 19 or 20. Isn't
Okay.
that crazy?
Yeah. Um, and I love these movies. We both love these
We
movies. If you
do.
watched last year's horror bracket, you know that, these movies are really cheesy,
Oh yeah.
but
Well,
they
this
have a good.
one's not super cheesy,
It
I don't
is. No,
think.
it is. And
Is it?
here's why I wish we rewatched it because I know that you're not going to remember certain elements of this, and we'll
Oh,
talk about it. Because it takes me by surprise every time I watch it. But the story of these films is pretty good, and the mythos and the lore that they build, even in the first film,
yeah.
is very interesting. And you can tell that, you know, a lot of the sequels take place directly after the last one ended. Similar
Yeah.
to Halloween 1 and 2,
Right.
it's like the first one ends and then the second one picks up. A lot of them are chained together like that. And so
Correct.
you can tell that James Wan had a real vision for these
Yeah, God
films.
bless.
Um, so with that being said, why don't you take us with entertainment value?
Okay, so I give it a 4 out of 4 because I think it is a great movie from the beginning to end. I think that there are some lulls, of course. I mean, it's like a, what's it called? A bottle episode? It's like a bottle movie, right? But no, it's not.
I wish we rewatched this because you
Is
really
this
don't
the
remember a
one where
lot
the
of it.
guy has to go through the barbed wire?
That
Is
is
that
a
the first one?
yes.
Okay, and so where you meet that one cop that he ultimately gets, right? He's in
So
this one.
yeah, so the main story of the film is the two people stuck in the room. But the
Yes.
other story of the film is the two detectives that are trying to find Jigsaw, and they are also investigating all of Jigsaw's previous crimes. So there's the reverse bear trap,
Yes.
there's the guy with the
Yes.
candle in the room that has to read the safe combination on the walls, there's the barbed wire,
Yeah,
and
I
so there are
remember.
all these other little traps that you get to see,
It's
right?
peppered in. Yeah.
Um, Now, the one thing that every single time I rewatch this movie, remember is this movie takes. If you've ever seen the movie Seven,
Yeah.
okay,
Love
and
that
you know
movie.
how everything's green and blue,
Yeah.
and it's a really cheesy cop drama. Like it feels like
It's
a
awesome.
Law and Order episode
Yeah.
almost, but like more grungy.
Yeah.
That's what this movie is. It's
Yeah.
so the cop drama is so unbelievably
I
cheesy,
love cop drama though.
but I just eat it up,
Yeah,
man.
it's the friggin' best.
I'm gonna give entertainment a 3 out of 4. I can't give it a perfect 4 out of 4 because I do think at times it
It
loses me.
lulls. But
But
then
it's
they
never when
get
they're
you
in the
again,
room.
man. No, the room is the best part.
When it's just these two dudes in a room
Fuck that guy.
figuring out the mystery of it, because there's a lot of mystery in this movie. There's a lot more of like
Yeah.
the who are you, how are we connected, how do we get out.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot more like questions, and it's almost like an
No, it's so
escape
good
room.
because I like went into Saw. I was very squeamish. I didn't want to watch it. I used to get sick watching CSI. Like I do not like gore, right? So I watched it with one of my friends when I was like again like 19, and I was like, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch it. And it's so good
It's a good
because
movie.
it's a whodunit. It really kind of is a
It is
whodunit
a whodunit, and I think a lot of people steer away from these films
because
because
they're
they
so
think that there's
gross.
yeah, because they
They
are
are
gross,
gross.
they
Yeah.
are gross, but they're not as gross as you probably remember.
No. But they also suck. They're gross though. Like I get it. I get why people are turned off to them because they are yucky. But they balance it well. The story makes it worth it. Like my mom doesn't like anything like this, and she likes the Saw movies. You
They're
know,
yeah,
like
because again, you're right. They are it, it's a who done it. You're constantly questioning who's good, who's bad, and Jigsaw, in the story, he doesn't do anything quite like this again in any of the films. He doesn't just take two guys and shove them in a room
no.
for like
Well,
12
there's the
hours.
house one though, which is kind of
But
like that.
that's the sequel, that's
It
Saw
is. It's
2,
the
but
second
it's
one.
still different.
It is.
And I think thematically they tie that in pretty well.
Hmm.
Um I love this movie. I'd
I
give
love this movie.
scares and kills. I'm gonna give it 3 out of 4,
That's what I
simply
did too.
because all of the traps are very fun and interesting and
Yeah.
unique. And to have a brain like James Wan and to make something like
Right.
this is so twisted and
It
crazy.
is scary. Like
Um,
James Wan actually could have been like the greatest serial killer known to man, I think. But he
it's just
decided to make movies
the
instead.
concept of it in hindsight is so
I did
obvious.
not know he did Conjuring. Am I dumb?
I just said that.
Was I here? And
Um,
Furious 7
yeah, he did do Furious
and
7.
Aquaman?
He did do Aquaman, yeah.
I love Dead
He's a weird
Silence.
director,
He
I'm
is a
telling you.
weird director.
And then he was the producer on like a million, of the all the sequels had him to some
Sure.
extent. Yeah, the kills are so unique,
They're
and
so unique.
again the concept of it feels cliche now, but it was unique at the time. This guy who said, "What are you willing to do to survive?"
Yeah.
And let's look at the chat real quick. Yes, Steve, this is the same man that directed Aquaman. Um,
Aquaman.
Sam, you're right, probably. Sorry, I'm just reading. And Jimmy said James Wan is my favorite modern horror director. Yeah, he's
I
great.
think, yeah. I think, what
Who else
else?
are you got?
Isn't Megan? Megan's coming out next year. Is that James Wan?
That is James Wan. So the next James Wan movie is going to be Megan,
Which I'm
which
like
looks really
stupid
cheesy and
excited
stupid.
for. Yeah.
Um, I don't think I think it's going to be more in line with like *Malignant*, um,
Oh, yeah. I don't think it's going to be
but
good.
I think it's going to be fun. Um,
Back to Saw, sorry. Megan does look
it
hilarious,
looks
and like
hilarious,
that's why you
but
want to
if you've
see it.
seen *Malignant*, you pretty much already know what you're in store for. So, um,
So then for
writing and acting.
production, yes. I gave it a 2 out of 2 because I think
Whoa.
the ending makes it so worth it. And to think, it's like the Final Destinations. You have to think through so much to get to the end, you know? Like
Yeah,
they start setting up those kills so early, and that's what they do in Saw. Like little things that you don't even think about, like a door closing. And at the end they're like, "Oh, it was Jigsaw who closed that door," you know?
it's very well
It's
written.
and
I'll
I
give
think
you that.
Tobin is such a good actor. You will never convince me that Tobin actually isn't Jigsaw. Like he is so good that that's who he is. And I just love these movies. There's something so charming about these scary little movies. Oh, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen this movie, but when he gets up off the floor in the room,
Yeah,
that is like the
it's one of the best
scariest
twists in
mind-blowing
like
shit in the
every
whole.
yeah
Yeah, great. I love it.
in horror history. I will agree. I think the writing in this movie is absolutely spot on,
10 out of 10.
fantastic.
The
Um,
acting I guess is not great.
that's what I'll say is, and you know what? It's only the detectives. I think the detectives are
Because
the acting is so bad for them, especially like Danny Glover and his partner in this are so like cheesy,
yeah.
poorly written, poorly
But I think because
acted.
truly, 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 the cops were kind of like an afterthought thrown in to make a cool, like,
Just move the
yes,
story.
yes,
And in all of the Saw films, there's those two parallel stories, the cop story and the trap story. It's
yes, in all of
constantly,
them, yeah.
and you almost have to rate them separately. And in
Even
some
in like
movies,
Spiral, they did that.
right, and in some movies, one side is better than the other. I think the only reason I can't give this a perfect score for writing and acting is just because I think a lot
I
of those like cheesy
understand.
detective plot lines are like pretty badly acted. I don't even know if
But
it's
that
the
makes
acting or
them
the
good.
writing.
Like, what's the one where crazy? What is that one?
That's the last Saw.
Like, that movie sucks, but that it's so good.
That's what I'm saying. There's a certain cheesy element here that
Right.
definitely.
It fits the cheesy and like schlocky that like I think Halloween Kills kind of tried to do sometimes, and it just wasn't good, you know?
Jimmy just said that *Malignant* is his favorite James Wan movie, so
Jimmy.
come on, man.
That really makes me sad for you, honestly.
Total score for Saw 7 out of 10.
Oh my god, I gave it a 9 out of 10. I love
We
Saw.
love it. We love this movie. So um, that's it for Saw. I highly recommend you all go rewatch Saw if you haven't seen it. The first one is really something special, and it's, if you don't like the gross torture stuff, close your eyes. There's never like a jump. You always know when it's coming,
You
is my
do.
point.
They set
So,
it up, and it's long though. They don't hide away from it, which is gross and squeamy, but it's good.
going over to our bracket, we're going to be putting oh, we're not ready
We
yet.
can't. We
Actually,
have
we
to do
have we have
one
to talk
more.
about some more movies. So, no bracket just yet. Little vibe check. How everyone in the chat doing?
Good.
Pretty good. Okay. So, next up, we will be talking about a movie that is again,
He looks like Macaulay Culkin right there.
he does kind of.
Yeah.
Next, we'll be talking about another movie that is new. Not sure if it's still in theaters, but it might be in
I
some.
don't think it is, but I think it's streaming.
It's a little movie called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Now, this movie is technically a horror,
Hmm.
but it is more so a whodunit.
It's a whodunit. It's a very, very good
It's a
whodunit.
very good whodunit. If you go into this movie expecting it to be really scary or spooky, you'll probably be disappointed. But if you go into this movie expecting it to be a really, really solid, well written, well acted
Yes.
whodunit mystery, you're going to be very, very
I think I
satisfied.
was so I went in expecting like a scary movie and I still left like so happy. Like
Yeah,
I really loved this
I
movie.
would rewatch it,
I would too.
and I
And
and
we just saw it.
we'll get back to this later, but I want to just say real quick, get ahead of it. The acting is spectacular.
So good. Everyone.
And and I guess because we're talking about it right now, I'll just talk about writing and
Yeah, that
acting.
works.
I just want to say number 1, what makes it such a good whodunit is great writing. But
Yes.
also number 2, I think when I saw all of the marketing for this movie and they were really highlighting like this is a Gen Z, Gen
Yes.
X, like they talk hip and they have cell phones and they
And
know
they're
all
all
the
like
slang
rich, annoying influencer
and
kids.
when you look at the marketing and you see that, you really expect it to be this like half written, full of
I'm trying to
cliche,
think of a movie that we've seen that like does do that.
like
Like
a boardroom of like 6-year-old dudes. You're like wrote what they think teenagers would be. That's what you're
right,
scared of. That's what I was scared
6
of
year,
when I
not
saw the
6.
marketing. And what the movie in reality is extremely well written.
Yeah, it's so well written and like you said, everyone is so good.
Yeah,
Like everybody is such a good actor in this. Every character is like different but like the same, like annoying. It's like I totally believe these are a group of friends
they're real
and
people.
they're like, "Oh, it's
And
so
cliches
good."
are represented, but they all feel real. And that's
Yeah.
a combination of the writing and the acting, and it's really what holds this movie together. It's the fact that everyone in it is clearly very talented,
And
and
like never not
you're
heard of.
constantly guessing.
The only recognizable name in this movie, at least to me, was Pete Davidson. Which fuck Pete Davidson, but he was so good in
He was
this.
awesome in it. He
But like
really was.
nobody else I ever had heard of, and they were all so good.
So writing and acting,
I
I'm
did.
gonna go ahead and give it 2 out of
That's what
2.
I did also because I couldn't think of anything wrong with it. It was so good.
Entertainment wise, I would give it a three out of
I
four.
also gave it a 3 out of 4.
The main reason I'm not gonna give this a perfect score for entertainment is because and the really why I dislike the movie in general is the last 30 minutes is kind of just like people rolling on top
It's
of
the
each
same
other.
thing. It is very just like cat fight for the ending, and that's exactly why I didn't give it a 4 because it does get a little fatiguing, but you're so invested in the story and you need to know how it ends that you like let it slide on the first watch, but on a second watch, like knowing how it ends, I don't know if I'd be so lenient on all of that.
Exactly. And I think, typically in movies like this I turn to Natalie, in the first act and I go, I think it was this person and in this movie I really wasn't sure and I kept second guessing myself and it
Yeah.
wasn't really until like the beginning of the third act where I turned to Natalie and I guessed the ending.
Yeah.
But even after I guessed it,
And
I kept going, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was this person.
right,
Maybe it was
because I don't think you told me what you thought it was. You said, I know how it ends,
uh-huh.
which is how we always kind of talk to each other in
Yeah.
movies. And I was also like on your same wavelength, but again, I like second guessed 100 times before
They're
anything.
really good at constantly making you second guess.
They are.
And and that's awesome. And I think that's what makes it entertaining. It's and like I said, the setting of it is really fun.
It's really fun setting. It's really fun characters. Like it's again angsty horror, and I don't know. I really
It
vibed
was
with it.
entertaining. I gotta like the last 30 minutes is a lot of people like fighting for oh, they're grabbing a gun, grab the gun out of their hands.
Yeah,
Like it's like that sort of
it
like
is annoying.
struggle with the same like four characters or
Yeah,
something for like 30 minutes at the end. And if they were to somehow fix the pacing there, I think this would be like a perfect whodunit like type
I
movie.
know.
But
But how long is this movie?
it's 94
Oh,
minutes,
I
so
was
it's
like, maybe
already
they didn't do,
short,
but
but
it
it
is short, but it
feels,
felt longer,
and it's because of
which
that
is not,
ending.
it is because of the ending. But even the ending is very good. It's just
Yeah,
like
no, no, it wraps up well.
the, I don't know. But for Scary Slash Kills, I only gave it a 2 out of 4 because I don't think anything was too like scary or jumpy, But I think just the mystery aspect of it was so good that I feel like that's included in the Scares slash
I'm
Kills.
gonna give Scares and Kills a 1 out of 4. I
Sure,
think
and
that
that's fair.
none of the kills are particularly interesting. Nothing about it is
Except the
particularly
main one.
scary.
The main one is just fun. It's not like
Yeah,
scary
but
though.
you keep expecting, or maybe you don't, but
No,
I almost expected like a slasher murderer to show up,
so
and
I
that
went
doesn't
in it
really
more
happen.
paranormal, which is interesting, and it's not at all. It's not. Spoiler, sorry. But
Yeah, again, we don't want to give away too much, but
it's very
it's
good. If you
not a
have not seen it,
scary, gory, killy movie. It really is a whodunit, like a Clue.
yeah,
It's like the modern day
it is
Clue.
like a modern day Clue, and everybody should see it if you have not, because it is absolutely worth the 94 minutes,
I would
and it
say
is
so.
so fun,
Reading the chat, Jimmy's room said Skeet
which is
with a disinterested emoji.
hilarious.
Again, Pete Davidson is spectacular in
He
this
is a
movie.
star. He
He's
is
really good.
such a star in it. And I'm the number one Skeet hater, man. I am not a fan at all. They also cover all his tattoos in this, and it is
Oh,
very weird to see.
it's very interesting.
Be careful what you Google.
Yeah, hold on. I'm just gonna switch over to this real quick so I don't. But yeah, for whatever reason, they wanted to cover up a lot of
Well, because
his,
he plays a very pretentious, trying to get a job white collar guy.
and so they
That
use
one's fine. Oh.
yeah they use like this. I don't know what they used, but they cover up all of his tattoos,
All
which
of
is
his
really
tattoos,
interesting.
which is so crazy with makeup because he was underwater like this for like 30 minutes. And so it's actually makeup, which is wild.
So my final score for the film is going to be 6 out of 10.
Mine's 7 out of 10.
So slightly better than me.
Hmm.
Anyone in the chat think they might go see this movie?
You should. I think it's great. I think it's a fun throw on movie.
Jimmy said it's a Halloween done it. It's funny, I
No,
guess.
he's going back to Halloween ends. It's a callback.
Sam said seems like a maybe. Jimmy said he's gonna go see
Jimmy,
it.
I think you would like it.
I'd recommend it. So let's go ahead and
Now we can finish
switch
the
over to
bracket.
our bracket. So next up on the bracket, we're gonna have Saw versus Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
So
My
Saw.
winner's a Saw.
It's -2, which is sad because Body. Oh, am I fucking with
Don't
something?
click that stuff.
Sorry, because I think Bodies is very, very good,
I thought so
but
too.
Saw is better. So.
Saw is better. So Saw takes this win. Um,
Oh, easy. Saw also takes the next win. Bye.
Now, do you wanna just knock this out while we're here?
Um, no, well, sure, but then we have Barbarian and Saw after that. We could just knock out. So do you want to just keep?
No, let's keep talking.
Let's keep
So,
talking.
um, Bodies, 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 pretty good. Now, just now we talked about a very contemporary, modern day horror
Yeah.
movie. Next up, we're going to be talking about a vintage horror movie, a classic, some might say. This movie is from 1981.
Yes, it
I know there's at
is.
least one person in the chat that is very excited to hear about this film. This was both of our first time seeing this film, despite the fact that in April we watched the remake.
Which I have absolutely zero memory of, so it must not have been good.
We are talking about The Evil Dead.
Hmm.
Now, this is a movie that was directed by Sam Raimi, a
Which
very goofy
I
director.
love Sam Raimi.
Yes,
I
Sam
think
Raimi
he's
is awesome.
so
He's
good.
got a real gamer goop brain,
Yeah, he
which is
does.
what I use to describe
Click
someone that just wants to
his
see
name.
cool stuff.
Click his name.
I will in a moment.
Oh, sorry.
This movie's directed by Sam Raimi. It was directed on a shoestring budget back in 1981.
And you can tell.
And you got to remember, back in 1981, they didn't have nothing, man. They had nothing spooky. This is crazy for their time,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
And
my
you got to
God.
keep that in mind when you're talking about this movie because the stuff in this movie, man,
I literally made note of that. It's kind of like what's Reagan? The Exorcist. Like the shit that she would say
that's what I'm saying.
was like mind blowing back then. It's mind blowing in 2022, right?
So, people might know Sam Raimi for the Spider-Man trilogy that we all grew up on.
Hell yeah.
He did the new Doctor Strange. He made several sequels to this film. He did Drag Me to Hell, and that's mostly what people know him
My
for.
one complaint about this movie is there should be no sequels. I can we spoil a movie from the 80s?
I mean, you can.
Is that allowed? I'm going to. Sorry everyone, but everybody else in this movie it gets like touched by like the possessed people and they are instantly possessed and like
Yeah.
die. But fucking Bruce Campbell gets bit and scratched and like blood in his mouth and at the end actually possessed and there's two more movies. That like makes no sense to me and that makes me very upset. I think that they should have ended it.
And to answer Jimmy's question, no, neither of us have seen any of the
I
sequels for
have
these
not. And you
films.
know what? I loved this movie. I thought this movie was very fun. So I'm sure I would like the sequels, but I cannot watch them because there should not be sequels. He should be dead.
So, entertainment-wise, I'm gonna give this movie a 2 out of 4.
I gave it a 3 out of 4. You gave it a 2?
The reason I'm giving this movie a 2 out of 4 is because this movie makes the same mistake as every horror film in the 80s makes, which is it's kind of slow at the start, whatever, I can forgive that.
Mhm.
The first round of spooky stuff happens and it's really really solid.
Yeah.
But then there's this big gap where kind of nothing happens for like 10 to 15
That is
minutes
true. And it's a
where
short movie.
Bruce Campbell in somewhere in the third act of this movie, all of his friends are dead, and he's kind of just paranoid running
Well,
around the house for like 15
they're not
minutes.
dead. They're possessed.
Whatever.
Well, he's not just running around from nothing. There are still four people trying to kill him.
I know, but my point is there's a big chunk of this movie where nothing
I hear
really
you, and I
happens.
agree. And I think in reading that this was only 85 minutes is shocking to me because this felt like a 2-hour movie. I enjoyed it, but it felt way longer than it is.
Um, Jimmy, so what Jimmy's alluding to in the chat regarding sequels for this film, and what I know about the series is that after the first film, they pivot very much so into like a comedy
Sure,
series.
sure.
And I think the sequel even retreads, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Evil Dead 2 actually redoes some of this movie. Like I think they changed
Weird.
the ending of the first one in
They
some
literally have
ways,
to because there would not be sequels if
and
they
then they
didn't.
turn the series into something else.
He
It's a
said it's a
requel, yes.
requel.
And that's what I was getting from the synopsis is that the sequel to this movie they kind of remake the
So it's like
movie into
Doctor
a
Sleep.
comedy. Well, no, because they didn't.
They didn't remake Doctor Sleep, did they?
No,
But
that
they
was
had
just a
to move
sequel.
it up a little bit. They have to change some things. Anywho, I gave it a 3 out of 5 because it was such a wild movie. The entire time, it was like I didn't know what was gonna happen next. Because as you said, like this movie's from the 80s, and the things that were happening to these people and the things that these people were saying, like in the 80s, I was like, oh my god,
Well,
like the tree rape. That is such a crazy scene,
yeah.
and it makes me uncomfy, and I've never seen anything like it. That's not true. I've seen the other Evil Dead.
Well, I think that kind of takes us into the next category,
Scares and Kills.
which I would give a 3 out of
I
4.
also gave it a 3 out of 4.
And I think where this movie really, really, really excels is all of the practical effects for the possessed people are like
They're very good.
bonkers good.
Yeah,
All the people just like festering and oozing
yeah.
and
And like
shaking,
bulging
and
eyes and
it's
stuff.
just
It is
disgusting.
gross. That's a
And
great
it
word.
keeps escalating even when you think it's done escalating. It's like really gross, disgusting, oozing crud continues to happen.
Yeah.
And I think this movie really must have blown people's freaking minds because
Oh,
of
I'm
that.
sure. I'm
Because
sure
even
it
now it
was.
looks great. So I can't imagine
Yeah.
back then when like no one was doing this.
No, there were multiple scenes like when she stabs her through the heel with that pencil.
Yeah.
That is so yucky.
Yeah.
That is so. Also, if she can get stabbed by a pencil and get possessed, and Bruce Campbell can get his entire calf ripped off and not get
So
possessed,
I'll just say the writing and acting for this film
done.
is like I don't even want to give it a 1 out of 2.
I gave it a 1 out of 2 just because I love Sam Raimi and I love Sam Raimi's shots. There were so many super fun shots in this movie
Oh, it's
that I love.
awesome.
Like Demon Cam is
There's so
so
much
cool.
style. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like when you're in the demon's perspective, it's really interesting.
so fun.
And when they're stalking, when the demon's outside the house looking in the windows, it's really creepy.
Hmm.
And all of the, tilt shots, and there's you can tell there's a lot of style here despite
Yeah.
the, and sound design is incredible. The sound in this
Okay.
movie is like incredible
The
all the way through.
sounds of like the demons and stuff and like the grunts are fine, but the entire movie is like filmed and then voiced over,
Hmm.
and it's so distracting that like it took me out multiple times. Like the entire time his girlfriend is like laughing, it is so like voiced over. It's not even matching up with her face, and that stuff bugs me so much. Like you need to match. And I understand it's from the 80s. I understand it was low budget, but like please you nope, you nope, nope, nope. You got everything except the title. But if it wasn't voiced over, I would like it more.
So about three hundred
But
fifty
what is that in
thousand
today's
dollars.
money? Sorry, this is
I
getting
would
good.
really like to watch the new one though, simply because I think the idea of it is really interesting to remake the movie entirely
Yeah,
and turn it into a completely different thing. $1 million
that's a
about,
lot of money though.
I
But
guess.
they were a lot of practical effects. It was made on $3, Jimmy
$3 is what
says.
Jimmy said. I'll take
I'd
his
believe
word.
it. I would believe it.
I give this a soft 6 out of 10.
I gave it a 7 out of 10.
So not too bad.
Not too bad.
Um, Again, I liked the movie. I would definitely recommend watching it. It's
Oh yeah,
fast enough. It's goofy. The acting
it
is
is.
fun. The effects are really fun. I don't regret watching it in any
No,
way.
I don't
It
think there's
just it kind of.
anything necessarily wrong with it except for it's a little bit slow.
Oh, sorry. Jimmy said it's a 10 out of 10.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Jimmy.
Okay.
You can put that on your bracket.
Still is Evil Dead.
It was. It was Evil Dead.
Next up.
Oh, wait, we can finish a bracket.
Nope, we can't.
Yes, we can.
Nope, we can't.
No, we can't.
Next up, we're talking about a film. Oh, Steve said in the chat real quick. Still haven't seen it, but I need to. They added the main dude to Fort. I was just telling Jimmy
Oh, that's weird.
they added Ash to Fortnite.
Right, but oh, by the way, I added Ash to our baby name list because I think Ash is such a cool
So
name.
again, and you're saying it's odd. Again, the sequels of this movie series turns into like Ash turn is like a super badass that hunts demons, a la Supernatural.
But he's possessed, so that's very weird that he can
I'm
do
just
that.
saying like that's what it turns. It
I
turns
hear
into like an
you,
action
but it
comedy.
doesn't make sense and it really is upsetting to me.
She's really hung up on the rules
You can't break the
surrounding
rules. Don't
possession.
make a movie like that. But I think the name Ashley for a boy is super cute and I love it.
Well, next up is a film that is very near to my heart. Um,
I don't know why.
Back in the 60s or 70s or whatever, there's a book called The Shining, written by Stephen King. Stephen King then wrote a sequel to that book called Doctor Sleep, which is about the little boy all grown up. For those of you who have only seen the movie The Shining, you might not know that the book is very different in a lot of ways. The book focuses more so on the psychic abilities of the young child
Hmm.
and how those psychic abilities interfere with a haunted hotel. Whereas the movie kind of just focuses on the haunted hotel and more so the father.
Hmm.
Um, it's a good movie, but it's very different than the book. The
Yeah.
sequel to the book, Doctor Sleep, focuses on this little boy all grown up, and so does the movie, which is what we'll be talking about, the 2019 movie Doctor Sleep. This movie was directed by Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan directed Haunting of Hill House on Netflix.
Ooh.
He also directed Haunting of Bly Manor
And
and
Midnight
Midnight Mass.
Mass, which I love.
So he is more so known for the TV side of things,
Yes.
but this movie's interesting because it takes elements from the book while also being a sequel to the movie. Without spoiling too much, the end of the book and the end of the movie are very different. This is a sequel to the movie. Um, but that being said, it stars Ewan McGregor, who is absolutely a national treasure.
He is so
Not our
good.
national treasure.
No, but we'll accept him.
Um, and
Oculus?
yes, Mike Flanagan, the director, also did Oculus. He also did Gerald's Game, which
And
is a Stephen King,
oh, gross. Lots of gloving.
and Ouija.
I love Ouija.
Um,
Wow, what a good guy.
a good director. I will let you start us off with the entertainment value.
I give it a 3 out of 4 because oh, I didn't write any notes. Oh no. I
Watched this last night for the record.
We did watch this last night, which is why I didn't write notes. I like this movie a lot. I think it starts to like drama. It's a long movie. It's a lot longer than I like to watch movies. Um, so it starts off a little bit slow, but I think it's good. And I went into this like telling you multiple times. I was like, "Ugh, I don't feel like this is very scary. This is like not a horror." And like immediately I was proved wrong. It very much so is
Oh
like a
yeah.
spooky movie
Oh yeah.
because I am not a fan of The Shining. I actually really despise the movie The Shining.
I don't love it.
It's
I love the
long,
book.
it's boring. I do not like that movie. But I really do like this movie.
I
I
do too.
think it keeps you in. I think all the characters are super interesting. I think Ewan's like arc is
Oh my god.
fantastic. Like it's a great movie. It's a great movie.
Entertainment, I'm gonna give a solid 4 out of 4. I think this is as entertaining as it gets.
4 out of 4.
You are right. It's a very long movie. It's 2.5 hours,
So long.
and really, I think the reason that it is so long is because I think the director really wanted to make it true to the book. It's a long book, and it's very interesting that this was directed by someone that's known for TV because this kind of feels like a
Bro, can you imagine
TV
if this
show.
was an HBO
But that's
series?
what I'm saying.
Oh,
Like this kind of feels like a TV show
it
condensed
does.
into a 2.5 hour movie because you go through so. I mean, 30 minutes into the movie, there's an 8 year time jump.
Yeah, which I forgot about.
The movie covers a lot of
It
ground,
does
and
cover a
and in
lot.
that way you can tell that it is based off a Stephen King book.
You can.
From the very opening scene and the little witch, and you said immediately this feels like Pennywise, and
Oh, yes, because
like
they have the little eyes.
you can just feel the Stephen King. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
it's very, and in that way, it's comforting, which is such a weird way to
yeah,
describe Stephen King,
yeah.
but it is very, it's a comforting. I don't know. I really enjoy this movie. I'm gonna go to the chat though because I'm getting roasted for not liking The Shining, which
Go
is
ahead.
disgusting. Jimmy said this podcast should be called The Whining, which is kind of funny. It's just not my movie. It's too long. It's way too long. I don't like Jack Nicholson's character. I do love Shelley Duvall, but she was treated pretty shitty during this movie.
Yeah.
She gave a great performance, but they kind of abused the fuck out of her. So I'm like not a big fan of The Shining.
Um, yeah, it's whatever. The last time I talked to these two, neither of them had seen The Shining. Steve and Jimmy had never seen The Shining last year when we did
Well,
this
now they
bracket,
love The
and I
Shining for
tried to
some
get
reason.
them to watch it with me, and they refused. But,
Oh,
um,
that's really weird, boys. Coming at me.
um, but yeah, this movie is incredibly entertaining.
It is
Part of
very
that
good.
is the direction is incredible. Mike Flanagan has a very distinct style, and he's really good at suspenseful build-up. He's really good at grounding horror in real life. He's a fantastic director. I really enjoy everything about this film. The way that they handle the supernatural
Yeah.
elements. You said they felt kind of cheesy. I think they're spot
No,
on.
are you talking about the flyover?
All the flying stuff
Because I
and the
literally
out of body
docked it. I
stuff.
docked it a point. Oh no, I wanted to dock it a half point, but I didn't end up doing it because I couldn't justify it. I hate that scene. Everything else I think is done really well. I think the what their life source is like done super well. They don't shy back. It is very hard to watch at some points,
Yeah,
and I think that
yeah.
that's weird for a movie. They don't usually show like torture, and this one absolutely does. And so it's just it's good. It's a good movie.
Um,
Scares and Kills, I gave it a 3 out of 4.
I'd give it a 2 out of 4. I don't find it to be particularly
I think it's
scary, and
scary.
there aren't really a lot of kills in it either. There's a pretty
Yeah, there
big,
are.
not really.
Okay.
Like people sometimes get shot, or like people sometimes die like off screen,
hmm
but there's really only a handful of like really spooky sequences, which is why I'm gonna give it a two out of
I thought
four.
it would. Yeah, that's fine.
It's more of like a sci-fi fantasy. It really embodies Stephen King in that way. where
Yeah,
it covers a lot of different genres. The chat is distracting you so
they are
heavily. Go
because
ahead,
it's
read
going
it.
crazy. I just want to read it in my head though. You can read it out loud.
Steve said Cap. I think I'm now remembering that it was actually Sebastian and Jimmy who had not seen The Shining, not Steve.
Sorry, Steve.
We tried to do a movie night last year and they refused. It was the night that I was out of the house and you watched The Shining by yourself, and we were supposed to
Oh, and
watch
I
it.
absolutely fell asleep, I think. I probably like fast forwarded through all of it and then fell asleep.
Um,
There is a point in this movie though. Is that a spoiler? There's a Jack Nicholson lookalike, and it's the guy from Hill House, and he does a great job. It's so crazy.
so it is weird that in this movie, so this movie because it's a sequel,
Wait, I'm gonna cut you off again. It is scary. There's all those little, like the bathroom ghost.
the bathroom ghost is very
There
scary.
are, but those things pop up all the time.
Yeah, it's a horror
It's a
movie.
scary movie.
It's a horror movie. Um, yeah, so whenever they go back to show like the Jack Nicholson character or Shelley Duvall or him as a child, they just recast the people. They
Yeah,
didn't use CGI to
which I
try and
appreciate.
but they could have done CGI, which is why it's kind of confusing that they didn't.
It is a little bit because
Um,
in the beginning you're kind of like, is that supposed to be? And then you're like, okay, yes, it is.
Steve asks, does this movie go into The Shining much? The movie never did. Yeah, yeah.
This is all it's about.
This movie is about psychic vampires that like to feed on people who have The Shining.
Hmm.
They talk a lot about people in the world that have The Shining. The fact that some people naturally have it and don't know it. Some people are more powerful than others. All of the different abilities, the superpowers that come with The Shining. It's all about the psychic abilities and the fantasy elements. And so if you're like Steve or me and you really enjoy how Stephen King uh, dives into fantasy horror
Yeah,
and sci-fi, then you'll love this movie
it's done
because
very well.
and and to top it all off, all of the actors are phenomenal.
Hmm.
It's not cheesy. It doesn't feel like a
No,
TV movie.
no,
Ewan McGregor gives like the heart-wrenching performance of a lifetime.
he
He's a
does.
real character afflicted by an absent father and
An
addiction,
addiction.
and it's
It's
incredible.
so good. And I want to say, we just, it's not cheesy. There are so
No,
many parts where you're like, they could have done this and it could have been like really bad, but every single part is so believable. And like, there's so many raw, again, like the actors in this are so good. The only actors I will say I don't like are Abra's parents. I think both of them are useless, but everybody else, great movie. Everybody should watch this movie.
and without spoiling too much, if you've read the book, the ending to this movie will make you smile because they bring in elements of the book that they didn't use in the movie
Hmm.
to wrap up this
Which
movie,
is lovely.
which is kind of cool.
It is.
You can really tell that it was like a labor of love. And like I said, all the acting is great in it.
Yeah.
The,
Oh,
the
all the
writing and
acting's
acting,
great.
I gave a perfect score,
I
2 out
gave
of
a
2.
perfect score too. I wanted to take 1 point off because there's one part where it's like a flyover and it looks like really kind of cheesy and I hate it and I think they could have done it so much better because it's such a like important part of the movie and it just kind of looks stupid. But I think it's good. And I see that Steve is going to watch it now because he didn't realize that it was like a horror and I thought the exact same thing and it was my second time watching it. And I like forgot
It's a
it was
spooky
scary.
movie.
It's spooky. It's very spooky.
And my total score for it is going to be a hard 8 out of 10. I love
Mine
this movie.
also. Mine also. It was very good. And I was literally dreading watching this yesterday, and then I was like sad when it ended last night.
And yeah, I love this movie. I really
It's
do.
very good.
I want to read the book, but also I feel like the
Oh
movie
God, do you have 8 years?
but I feel like the movie must I haven't read the book, but I feel like the movie did a good job adapting it. Because it just it feels so much like a Stephen King. Stephen King is really good at showing like the dark underbelly of humanity and the
I
elements of
love
how
seeing that.
people treat each other that is
Uh-huh.
horrifying, and then he layers on top of it actual paranormal horror. And it just that's so evident
And
in
they
this.
take the connect because even the people who you're not supposed to like have likable qualities within
Yes.
their own like families. So
Yes.
it's not just like because I feel like some movies are like this guy's bad and he's just bad to the core, and like these people aren't. They just made different choices in life, and that's why they're where they're. Ah,
and
so
to
good.
and to add on to it, Stephen King is also really good at showing you an example of like an ideal human being that is supportive of
Yes.
someone that has been treated unfairly.
Yes.
Stephen King's really good at doing that, at
Yes.
like writing this like character that's almost like unrealistically a good
Yeah,
person,
and there
you
is one
know?
of those, and it is
And
very
you need
sweet.
that
You
in a movie that's
do.
like gut wrenching.
Great movie. We gotta
Like
stop
Natalie
talking
cried
about it.
twice in the
I
first act of this
did
film,
cry.
and she,
I was not expecting to.
um, so I love this movie. We're gonna go ahead and move over to the bracket, which places Evil Dead versus Doctor
So,
Sleep.
oh, Doctor Sleep wins. Good.
It's an easy win for
Well, it
Doctor
was only a
Sleep.
1 point win for me.
Um,
So,
Highly recommend it.
Halloween and Doctor Sleep, we can do that one.
We will, but we
Oh,
haven't
yeah, we
talked
haven't
about
talked
Halloween.
about Halloween. Sorry, sorry.
There's no reason to
I'm a
apologize.
bad co host.
Um, you just jump the gun sometimes, which is okay. It
Just
means you're
so
excited.
excited.
Jimmy says boo, boo us all you want. He said Doctor Sleep.
Jimmy, I'm sorry.
All right, well, we got one more to talk about here. At the very beginning of the episode, we talked about a movie called Halloween Ends, which was the end of a series. To build on that, the new trilogy for Halloween ignores every sequel to the Halloween series except for the very first movie.
Which
So
I hate.
there's like 10 sequels to Halloween. The new trilogy ignores every single Halloween movie except the original. So it's only fitting that we talk about the original. This is a movie that I had never seen start to finish. I'd only seen bits and pieces of it.
Same.
When we
Same.
went to the drive-in, we saw
Whoa, shout
Halloween.
out Harvest Moon
Shout out
Drive-In.
Harvest Moon, Gibson City, Illinois. We watched Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street. It was a double feature.
Awesome.
Neither of us had really sat down and watched this movie,
No, but
but
living in a suburb of Illinois, you know about
Illinois
this movie.
suburbs during Halloween time. What it's so, and we'll talk about this. It's so nostalgic.
It's so nostalgic for something that I've never had. I'm not from the suburbs, I'm from the sticks, and it's still so nostalgic. Halloween old, so it's bad
That's what Jimmy said.
based. But also, like, I agree. I did not like this movie.
Well, kick it off then. Talk about the entertainment value
I
for
gave it
Halloween.
a 1 out of 4. I did not like it. It was really slow. We were really cozy. And, like, so last time we went to the movies, we saw The Exorcist first. And so when we went, we saw this one first. And I feel like The Exorcist, I had such a high and it was so good because, like, the drive in and everything. And I was, like, expecting to get that with this movie. And I just did not love it.
Dude, everyone loves this movie. Anyone that's like a film nerd like sucks this movie off.
But am not a Michael Myers fan. I don't think he's a great slasher. I think is he the first?
No, but
Or is Friday
no.
the 13th the
That might
first?
be the first.
But I mean, it's just Sam says he never saw it, and I don't think you ever have
Here's
to.
what I'll
I
say.
think it's okay.
This movie I give a 2 out of 4 for entertainment, and
Why?
there's a lot that goes into that. Part of it is the fact that I really respect that John Carpenter tried to do something different. While
Yes.
while this movie is technically a slasher, if you go to just about any like online forum or like movie review website, like most people agree that this movie isn't your typical slasher because there's not
There's not much slashing.
there's not much slashing. There are murders towards the end of the film. He does
Yeah.
cut up some babysitters, but really it's a film about um I don't even know.
Yeah, what's it about?
That's what I'm
What is
saying.
the point of this
I
movie?
think, and I think the reason why I have a tough time with this movie is because I think conceptually it's better than it actually is. And like you said,
Yes, the vibes are so on point,
it doesn't
and
get
I
better.
think that gives it an excuse because the vibes are so good. The leaves are blowing, you feel a little
But it's
chilly. It's
boring.
Halloween night, but it's boring. The only good thing that ever came out of this movie was the music by John Carpenter.
The
God
music is a
bless you,
banger.
John Carpenter, for making and every single Halloween movie, the music is so good. Thank you, John Carpenter.
But yeah, this movie is just kind of boring. And like Jimmy said, ideal Halloween vibes. There are very few horror movies that actually take place during Halloween,
Right. Yeah.
let alone in Illinois suburb, similar to one I grew up in. And like you said, Michael Myers has never appealed to me. I've
Mm-mm.
never felt that he was a scary villain. And I think a lot of people liked him because he had no motive. But I think because the
Senseless,
movie
yeah.
is so boring, that never shone through for me. Whereas when I watched Halloween
So I
2018,
was just about to say
that's when I liked Michael
Halloween
Myers.
2018 is what Halloween 1978 wanted to be,
Right.
and it's so much
Because
better.
in Halloween 2018, there'll be a scene where Michael Myers there's a bunch of Halloween stuff, and Michael Myers, and there's kids running around. It looks like everything I've ever seen before, in real life. And Michael Myers will walk up and he'll grab a screwdriver and he'll walk into a random house and he'll just randomly kill someone, and then he'll drop the screwdriver and then he'll pick up a knife and he'll walk into another house and he'll randomly kill someone and then he'll drop it, and he's just like mechanical and walking around. And that's when it hit me, like, oh, this is scary because he has no
It's
motive.
scary because there's no motive, and that doesn't come across well in this
It
one.
doesn't. In
This one,
this, it feels like he's
I
hunting down
almost
something from
feel
his
like
past,
the
and I don't
main
get it.
character in this movie is that stupid doctor.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
way more about the doctor than anything else, and I'm just like, Jimmy is obsessed with Ralph the movie maker, and
Well,
he
okay,
keeps
so
talking about it.
it, you touched on something interesting. The Doctor's weird because his whole plotline for the movie is that some evil people are irredeemable,
Yeah,
which is a weird theme.
no, but it's true.
But he's basically saying that like some people
Also,
don't
it's not
deserve to
even
be
evil
treated.
people, it's like mentally ill people are evil, which
Right.
is a really bad
So like
message.
questionable messaging on that front, right?
Oh, you're mentally ill? Evil. Like,
Right. And like constantly in the movie there are times where like other doctors are like you're like there's like sarcastically telling him like your compassion is so, endearing, and it's like you can tell that like other doctors are like maybe we should treat this person, and
right.
he's like no,
No,
he's
he's evil.
evil.
Evil dies tonight.
Um he's acted well, but
Oh yeah, I mean he's a
but
fine actor, but the motive is weird.
the motive is weird because it feels like it's like okay, if this truly is a character that has no motive, why is he returning to the house that he grew up in? Why why
Right.
why come back to his hometown in the first place if he has no motive? Why doesn't he break out of the asylum and then just go hit up the nearest city? Like it doesn't make any sense if he has no motive. Why go back to this place? You know what I mean?
Because
If
he
he's
just wants to
truly
go
just a
home.
cold,
It's his
but
house.
why?
Because he doesn't know anything else. You just know your house.
But it doesn't make any sense. And I think that's why this film bothers me. And then in the sequel, they try to fix that. Whereas in the first movie, Jamie Lee Curtis is just the babysitter, and then in the second movie, they go,
She's the
actually,
sister.
she was secretly related to him,
Sister.
his sister, which is really weird and confusing because now you're giving him a motive. Now for some reason he wants to
Which
hunt
is
down his
great.
sister,
That's a great
which
motive.
is yeah, which is fine. But again,
But then they drop it.
I think it harkens to the idea that it doesn't really make sense that he doesn't have a motive, but
Yeah.
he's going to this place. So then they write him in a motive, and it just feels like Michael Myers is this character that they don't understand. Whereas in the new movies, they don't worry about that at
No.
all. He's just some
He's just a
guy,
psycho
and
killer.
he's just a psycho killer, and he's kind of like a god.
There's a
Like you kind
song
of can't kill
called
him.
Psycho Killer.
Let's rechat for a second because can't.
They're all talking about freaking.
Um, people out of their death surviving a supernatural evil, whatever. Steve said he fell asleep before Michael Myers gets on screen.
Same.
That
It's a
makes sense.
snooze.
Um,
And then they said Ralph gave it a 5 out of 5, which is just wrong.
and then lastly, Steve said Ralph is usually correct about movies. Um,
Is he?
I just want to take a quick aside to say that in the last 4 years, I've realized that Ralph is completely normie brained.
Yeah.
And all he does is rate and review new superhero movies and give the most average fucking opinion, the most mild average opinion you've ever heard in your life. And I really don't respect him anymore. I think he's funny.
Oh my god.
I I think Ralph is
This is personal.
I think Ralph is really really funny, and he's
Yeah.
really good at ripping apart bad movies, but I do not care what he has to say about art.
Okay.
I got to put that out there.
That's so
He's the
funny.
most normie person in the world. Like he gives the most weak sauce mild. Go to his YouTube channel right now and watch any of his new reviews.
Look, they're all coming in.
Dude, say whatever you want. He's fucking boring.
That's okay. It's okay. Maybe we're boring.
Where were we? Entertainment, I gave a 2 out of 4. Scares and Kills, I give a 1 out of 4.
Entertainment, I gave a 1 out of 4. Scares and Kills, I gave a 2 out of 4.
I
But
don't know how.
actually, that was a lie because I don't remember a single kill
Kill?
from
Yeah,
this
there's no
movie.
good kills in this movie.
So
There
I
are
guess
no
I'm
good
giving
kills in
it
this
a
movie.
1.
It's like
And then
Child's Play. There's no good kills.
production, Child's Play.
Don't-
Chucky? Child's Play. And then production, I gave a 1 out of 2 just because I respect what they wanted and I respect the vibe.
Yeah, me too. It's a 4 out of 10.
It's a 4 out of 10.
Is that what you gave it? A
Yeah.
4 out of 10?
Yeah.
All right. Well, pivoting real quick, that means that we have one more bracket to touch on tonight, and that's going to be Doctor Sleep versus Halloween 1978. I think we both know
I
who
think it's
wins.
pretty obvious who wins.
It's Doctor
Yes.
Sleep. So we're actually not going to touch. Do you want to
I
do
think we
this
should.
one?
Yes.
Saw?
Obviously. And I think we should go to the next level
No.
because the finale's next week. You want to wait?
Yeah, the finale, I want to do the
We'll
rest of
do
it.
everything. Okay.
So right now in our quarterfinals, we have Black Swan, the original Nightmare on Elm Street, Saw, Barbarian, Nope, and
Ugh,
Doctor
I want to
Sleep.
watch Barbarian again.
I do too. Real quick before we wrap up tonight, let's catch up on the chat. People talking about how Ralph has sometimes good reviews. Yeah, whatever. Um,
It's personal, man.
who fucking cares? That's pretty much all they said.
No, Jimmy said I think he meant 14 out of 10, which Jimmy, I don't know how you have such wrong opinions about movies. It's very
Oh my
strange.
god.
And I'm very sorry to say that to you, but it's so crazy.
I think Jimmy just really respects something that's unique, no matter how
And you know what?
slow it
I
is.
respect that. I think it's good to like the underdog. I'm gonna
Halloween
do
is
that.
conflicting because you know what's really funny? I like most of the sequels more than the original. I think that the idea and the setting of Michael Myers is much scarier than he pulled off in the original movie. I think the
Yeah,
original's really boring, and then
yes.
they make it
I'm
something
telling you,
interesting.
Halloween 2018 was very good, and I think that makes me appreciate Michael Myers. Everything leading up to that does not. Does not. Sam was very excited that we picked Saw. Jimmy said that I'm sorry you hate art. Really like art, it's just not bad art. And then Steve said Jimmy's Ronnie brained. Only likes true. Ronnie is another great example of like the worst movies he's obsessed with.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at this meme that Jimmy is referencing. Jimmy, if you can send me that meme within the next 30 seconds on Facebook Messenger, I'm gonna throw it up on stream. While you're digging that out, I'm gonna touch on next week will be our finale. Last year we didn't do the finale until after Christmas, and that was a
Nope.
mistake.
After Halloween.
After Halloween. This year we're not gonna do that again. So next Friday will be the finale. There will be a definitive winner before Halloween.
Yes.
So next week we're talking about the following movies: Pray for the Devil.
Which is brand new coming
It's not
out
out yet.
Friday.
Smile, a movie that just came out recently.
Correct.
A movie called The Mist, which I've heard very good things about.
I've never seen. I get it confused though with The Fog, which is the worst movie I've ever seen.
We've never seen The Mist. The Taking of Deborah Logan, which is a classic possession movie
Very good movie.
The Black Phone, which is again a
Ethan Hawke.
relatively newer movie. And then after we're done with those films, then we're going to go through the bracket. Anything that we haven't done yet in the bracket, we're going to close out and we're going to have a
A winner.
definitive winner for you to go ahead and watch. And with that being said, I'm going to leave you tonight
I can't believe you
with
found it so fast.
No! No! No!
So
No!
good.
No!
I hate it.
Good night, everyone. Oh, I shouldn't show that. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Make sure that Michael doesn't hit the gritty. And I hope you have a great night. Thank you again so much for watching. Good night, everyone.